Good evening. My name is Dorota, and 8 years ago I have moved out from my home country, Poland, to Germany to do my PhD in neuroscience, precisely in schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a very complex disorder. There are many genes that contribute to a variety of symptoms like hallucinations or cognitive decline. And there are also several risk factors, like, for example, stress, growing up in a city, being an immigrant, and smoking cannabis. I don't know how about you, but out of those 4, I have already counted 3 for myself. Please don't ask me which ones. So, as you can see, schizophrenia is a very complicated disorder, and also humans are very complicated. That's why, to make my life a bit easier, I worked with mice. Now you're probably wondering, how does she know that her mice are schizophrenic? Well, actually, that's the point. They are not. Modeling such a complex disorder in mice would be not even difficult, that's just impossible. That's why researchers rather focus on single genes. In my case, I worked with mice which had an additional copy of one of the genes associated with schizophrenia in humans. The thing is that no one knows what the gene does. And that's where I come with my PhD. So the first thing I did was to check whether these mice show any schizophrenia-like symptoms. And in the perfect world, I would have a little chat with my mice and ask, Pinky, have you been experiencing any psychotic episodes recently? And then Pinky says, I don't know, I don't think so, but you know who visited me yesterday? It was Napoleon, he offered me some peanuts. What a nice guy. Unfortunately, I don't know if you have noticed, but mice don't speak. And that makes it quite impossible. So, what we can do instead are behavior experiments, which means that we run our mice through different types of mazes and we see how well they learn, are they lazy, are they active, and so on and so on. And that sounds already wonderful in theory, but in practice, most of my time as a behavior neuroscientist I would spend on one thing, and that's cleaning mouse poo. If there is one thing that mice are good at, that's pooping, and in huge quantities, up to 80 times per day. They can even poop against gravity. I've seen it. They don't do cubes, though. Still, I think it's really impressive. I bet that no one of you would be ever able to achieve that, no matter how much you try. Or is there anyone willing to take up the challenge? Another big part of my work was mouse breeding. Mouse breeding was done in a sterile animal facility where only animal caretakers would be allowed to enter. That's why, to communicate with them, I had to use a special computer system, which would allow me to ask them, for example, can you please put that male and that female together? Or, is that female finally pregnant? And so on. In that system, every mouse had its profile page with timeline, and I would also get feeds with the news from the breeding cages. So basically it worked pretty much like Facebook, just without cat videos. Yeah, cat videos, where are us? Ah, yeah. So with all that, poo and... One more thing about animal facility, important one. The animal caretakers spoke no English, so I needed to learn the crucial German vocabulary. So it might feel a bit odd that I'm struggling to put a German sentence together, but I know words like Männchen, a male, or züchten, to breed, or Penisvorfall, a penis prolapse. Which is, by the way, the reason why you don't put a male into one cage with too many females. But you know, with all those poo and breathing and so on, I started to believe that my PhD project was actually one of the most ungraceful and most awful projects you could ever do. But I was wrong. It can actually get worse. One day I read a scientific publication describing a study of mice, a study of ejaculation. In German, Ejakulation. So to measure the time their males needed to ejaculate, the researchers have analyzed hours and hours of videos with mice, you know, in action. Can you imagine a worse project than that? I think that must have been really awful. Unless you're into mouse porn. Then it's perfect. You know, just sit and watch, and at the end, you get a PhD. So, as you can see, the life of a behavior and neuroscientist can be quite tough sometimes, and it requires achieving certain milestones. Like, for example, that time when you find yourself discussing all the details of your love life, while cleaning mouse poo, of course, with your mice. Because you haven't had a chance to speak to a living human for the past 3 weeks. Or that time when you call your mom in the middle of an experiment asking when was your last tetanus vaccination. Or when you realize that you care much more about the sexual performance of your mice than about that of your partner. Which is still less than what you care about whether there is still any free pizza left in the seminar room. What are you laughing at? That was my life. So all those days and weeks spent alone in the basement with the mice, was it worth it? Well, actually yes. What I found was that my mice were actually not that different from the control mice, except from one thing. They really, really, really sucked in spatial learning and memory, which I can actually totally understand because I have this problem myself. I get lost anywhere all the time and you don't even have to put me into a maze. So my mice, when it comes to spatial orientation, they're opposite of smart. Why is that an interesting finding? Well, it actually tells us that the gene I have studied is responsible for a very specific brain function. And this information can help us design better drugs in the future that would target specific disease symptoms depending on the patient's genotype, which is, of course, much better than the one-size-fits-all approach in therapy. And this is what I would like you to remember from my talk, and not the German word ejaculation. Thank you very much.